last week and how, again, the leadership, the priests, were to be set apart, how there was even people between the clean and not profane his name, how I believe part of what we're seeing in society is because as a whole, the leadership in the church has not taught the people the difference between the clean and the unclean. Many have profaned his name. And so we have no standard or value except what you will do in public. Within a man's heart, within a man's mind, where his treasures are, where his values are, where he does. That's why there are qualifications given if a man wanted to be a leader. That he should meet before he was in leadership, because that's going to affect with setting apart, not profaning God's name. And the admonition again from Revelation for us to come out of the midst of her, my people, that we partake not of her sins and her plagues. God spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons that they separate themselves from the set apart offerings of the children of Israel, that they do not profane my set apart name in what they set apart to me. I am Yah. Say to them, any man of all your offspring throughout your generations who draws near the set apart offerings of the children of Israel, set apart to Yah, who has uncleanness upon him, that he shall be cut off from me, from before me. I am Yah. Any man of the offspring of Aaron who is a leper or who has a discharge does not eat the set apart offerings until he is clean. Whoever touches what is rendered unclean, being a man, by a being or a man who has an admission of sin, or a man who touches any swarming creature by which he will be made unclean, or any being by whom he become unclean, even any of his uncleanness, the being who has touched it shall be unclean until evening. He does not eat set apart offerings, but shall bathe his body in water. And when the sun goes down, he shall be clean, and afterwards eat the set apart offerings, because it is his food. Does not eat that which dies or is torn by beasts, becoming unclean by it. I am Yah. They shall guard my charge, lest they bear sin for it and die thereby. When they profane it, I, Yah, set them apart. Here we see that the things offered to Yah, the things that people brought, the offering that even though they belonged to the priest, because they had been set apart, the priest needed to be clean when he partook of them. If he became unclean because of things in life, whether through a fault of his own or not, just the living, then he had wait, cleanse himself, and then partake of it. We used to have that concept here in America between what was set apart and not. I know when I was in insurance and in stocks and bonds, they had a law against commingling. What I was hoping for a client was supposed to be in my account. as though it's been set apart. What judgments have we brought on our own churches because we've not even distinguished between the clean and the unclean? Some of these things we go, well, that's just, that's the Old Testament. These things are minor. Pretty sure if you went to a restaurant, you really hope they make a distinction between the clean and the unclean dishes, the clean and the unclean forks, the clean and unclean glasses, even though, well, it just had water in it. It's amazing how minor we don't mind getting when it's on us, and how much we want to get minor when we have to do it. We were getting dressed this morning and got one of his shirts. Told his mom, "Oh, this is green." And Stacy smelled it and said, "Dude, this shirt don't smell clean." He said, "Yeah, Mama, it was clean. It should have been on his rod for his little closet in the laundry room." Mama felt it and smelt it and said, "It's wet and it doesn't smell good. Where'd you get it?" He went, "Well, it wasn't on the floor." Though it had been clean, it had not stayed set apart. And it had become unclean, even though it hadn't been worn, hadn't been used. It's amazing, again, how easy it is to tell what's clean and unclean in everything except for what has to deal with God. And then that's too trivial. How important is it to us? How much do we really reverence him and respect him when everything, it seems, in life we can distinguish between clean and unclean except for when it comes to him? Then we just ask for grace. We ask for mercy. Grace this morning was for my wife to tell him, "Go get another shirt," not say, "Well, go ahead and wear that one anyway." Grace was her saying, "No, this is no longer clean. Go put it in the dirty clothes and find another shirt." That's what Yah's trying to do with us, to teach us, to train us. Why? So that we don't end up grabbing a dirty shirt off the ground and putting it on when it stinks. So that in our life, when we are walking out and telling others this is set apart, this is of God, it doesn't stink. So that truly what we are lifting up, the representation we are showing others, is of him. Messiah says if we lift him up, he would draw all men to himself. But suppose Why does it seem he's not very effective at drawing others into him? Because most of our churches are decreasing, not increasing. Most of our churches, the average age of the attendees getting older and older, not younger and younger, because we're losing generation after generation. Either one of two things. Either Jesus is a liar, or the Jesus we've been lifting up isn't him. We've been lifting besides Yeshua HaMashiach. And since he is the Word, from the beginning was with God and was God, became flesh for us, I'm assuming he's not lying. No stranger eats the set-apart offering, a sojourner with the priest, or a hired servant does not. But when the priest buys a being with his silver, he does eat of it, and one who is born in his house does eat of his food. When a priest's daughter is married to a stranger, she does not eat of the set-apart offerings. But when a priest's daughter is a widow or put away and has no child and has returned to her father's house as in her youth, she does eat her father's food. But no stranger eats of it. When a man eats a set-apart offering by mistake, then he shall give a set-apart offering to the priest and add 1/5 to it. Let the priest not profane the set-apart offerings of the children of Israel, which they lift up to Yah, or allow them to bear the crookedness of trespass when they eat their set-apart offerings, for I am Yah who sets them apart. Again, consequences. Even if someone accidentally ate it, they had to restore and restore more. Yah spoke unto all the children of Israel, and say to them, any man of the house of Israel or of the strangers of Israel who brings his offering for any of his vows or any of his voluntary offerings, which they bring to Yah as an ascending offering, for your acceptance is a male, a perfect one from the cattle, from the sheep, or from the goats, whatever has a defect, you do not bring, for it is not acceptable for you. When a man brings a slaughtering of peace offerings to Yah to complete a vow or a voluntary offering from the cattle or the sheep, it is to be perfect to be acceptable. Let there be no defect. Those blind or broken or cut or having an ulcer or eczema or scabs, you do not bring to Yah, nor make an offering by fire of them on the slaughter place to Yah. As for a bull or lamb that has any limb deformed or dwarfed, you do not prepare as a voluntary offering. You do prepare for a voluntary offering, but for a vow it is not accepted. Do not bring to Yah what is bruised or crushed or torn or cut, nor do it in your land. And from the son of a stranger's hand you do not bring any of these as the bread of your Elohim, for their corruption is in them and defects are in them. They are not acceptable for you. Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, when a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall be 7 days with its mother, and from the 8th day and thereafter it is acceptable as an offering made by fire to Yah. Do not slay a cow or a sheep and its young on the same day. When you slaughter a slaughtering of thanksgiving to Yah, slaughter it for your acceptance. It is eaten the same day. Leave none of it till morning. I am Yah. You shall guard my commands and do them. I am Yah. Do not profane my set-apart name, and I shall be set apart among the children of Israel. I am Yah who set you apart, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim to be your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. Why is it important to be set apart? don't look like the world, so you also don't catch what they have. I mean, literally, this last year, we have learned about being set apart, about being socially distanced, about being not where whatever infection could, while we walked among the world, not to catch it. And the best way they found is to try to be literally set apart, not near others as you gathered near others. Well, the Father has been doing this for millennia. Not saying keep 6 foot apart, but telling you how to walk, where, what to do and not do to protect yourself, so that He's given us a whole list of PPEs, a whole list of personal protection equipment that we could do to be set apart, that we could do for our own protection, and not only our protection, but the protection of our neighbors, the protection of our community, protection of our cities, of our nation, so that the whole nation would be set apart, so others could see and go, wow, what they're doing works. Maybe we ought to do it their way. And it's not so much we want them to do it our way, but if they're doing it our way, they're doing it His way. And as they do it His way, what are they choosing? Life. And before long, as they're choosing life, they're going to get life and begin to see who is the author and finisher of that. Begin to know Him, His ways. So from the very beginning, that was the purpose for Israel. Yes, they were set apart so that Messiah could come through them, but they were set apart so that they could show Yah in the nation. What was the problem with that? Same with us. They rarely followed it. They rarely did it for a very long time. They rarely did it for long enough. When they did it for just a short time, what happened? And not even perfectly then. But when David came to power, in a short time they had brought peace to the promised land. And Solomon, what did people do? People from all around came and gave to Solomon. Gave for what purpose? What? They came and gave to him because he ended up using many of those things in building Yah's house. They wanted peace. They wanted a covenant. They wanted an agreement because they could tell his kingdom was blessed. Now, what did Solomon do? Ended up making covenants with many of those nations, but didn't stay set apart. Ended up building high places, groves to all of their gods. And what happened to his kingdom? It was gone. Literally ripped the nation in two, to the 10 tribes and the 2 tribes. So we have before us today, are we going to be set apart, or are we going to see, as we're perhaps seeing next week, our very country ripped apart? Chapter 23, Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the appointed of times of Yah, which you are to proclaim as set apart gatherings, my appointed times are these. So again, we've seen about being set apart in our bodies. We've seen about being set apart in what we wear, set apart in our households, set apart in our leaders, set apart in our relationships, honoring his set apart place, his set apart offerings, and now we're to his set apart times as we're living our life. 6 days work is done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of rest, a set apart gathering. You do no work. It is a Sabbath to Yah in all your dwellings. These are the appointed times of Yah, set apart gatherings, which you are to proclaim at their appointed times in the first new moon. On the 14th day of the new moon, between the evenings, is the Pesach to Yah. On the 15th day of this new moon is the festival of Matzah to Yah. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. On the first day you have a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. You shall bring an offering made by fire to Yah for 7 days. On the seventh day is a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruit of your harvest to the priest. He shall wave the sheaf before Yah for your acceptance. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest waves it. And on that day, when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb, a year old, a perfect one, as an ascending offering to Yah. And its grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Yah, a sweet fragrance, and its drink offering, 1/4 of a hin of wine. You do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you brought an offering to your Elohim, a law forever, throughout your generations and in all dwellings. And from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you shall count for yourself 7 completed Sabbaths. Until the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, you shall count 50 days. Then you shall bring a new grain offering to Yah. Bring from your dwellings for a wave offering 2 loaves of bread of 2/10 of ephah of fine flour. They are baked with leaven, first fruits to Yah. And besides the bread, you shall bring 7 lambs a year old, perfect ones, and 1 young bull and 2 rams. They're an ascending offering to Yah with their grain offerings and their drink offerings. An offering made by fire for sweet fragrance to Yah. You shall offer 1 male goat as a sin offerings and 2 male lambs a year old as a slaughter or peace offering. The priest shall wave them besides the bread of the first fruits as a wave offering before Yah. Besides the 2 lambs, they are set apart to Yah for the priest. And on this same day you shall proclaim a set apart gathering for yourselves. You do no servile work on it, a law forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. Shavuot. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not completely reap the corners of your field when you reap. Do not gather any gleanings from your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am Yah, your Elohim. Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th new moon, on the first day of the new moon, you have a rest or a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yah. Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, on the 10th day of the 7th new moon is Yom HaKippurim. It shall be a set-apart gathering for you. You shall bring an offering made by fire to Yah. You do no work on that same day, for it is Yom Kippurim, to make atonement for you before Yah, your Elohim. For any being who is not afflicted on that same day, he shall be cut off from his people. And any being who does any work on that same day, that being I shall destroy from the midst of his people. You do no work, a law forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. It is a Sabbath of rest to you. You shall afflict your beings on the 9th day of the new moon at evening, from evening to evening, you observe your Sabbath. Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, on the 15th day of the 7th new moon is the festival of Sukkot, 7 days to Yah. On the first day is a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work. Excuse me. For 7 days you bring an offering made by fire to Yah. On the 8th day there shall be a set-apart gathering for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yah. It is a closing festival. You do no servile work. These are the appointed times of Yah, which you proclaim as set-apart gatherings, to bring an offering made by fire to Yah, and ascending offerings, and the grain offerings, the slaughtering and drink offerings, as commanded for every day. Beside the Sabbaths of Yah, and besides all your voluntary offerings, which you give to Yah. On the 15th day of the 7th new moon, when you gather in the fruit of the land, celebrate the festival of Yah for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the 8th day a rest. You shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of good trees, branches of palm trees, twigs of leafy trees, willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before Yah your Elohim for 7 days. You shall celebrate it as a festival for Yah for 7 days in a year, a law forever in your generation. Celebrate it in the 7th new moon. Dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native born in Israel dwell in booths, so that your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. For I am Yah your Elohim. Thus did Moshe speak of the appointed times of Yah to the children of Israel. So again, we have his Sabbaths set out. We have his feast days set out. Pesach, unleavened bread and first fruits. And then in the fall feast with Yom Teruah, Yom Kippurim, and Sukkot, and the closing ceremony are Shemat Torah, or Shemini Atzeret, the 8th day. All in the fall. But how many people keep his holy days? Or do we worship other holidays? Are other holidays acceptable? Mordecai called for us to remember Esther, what they did as a holiday. But forgetting his, substituting with him saying, remember Purim, he did not at all say forget any of the rest of them. Nor was Purim a holy day, I believe. It wasn't set apart by Yah. It was a remembrance of how the Father had delivered all of the Jews. It was to be a celebration of the sparing and the turning of the king's heart, of what the enemy had meant for harm, to literally a day of slaughtering the enemies on the day the enemies were going to slaughter the Jewish people. So I believe we can have remembrances, we can have celebrations, but those aren't the holy days. Those aren't Yah's set apart times. As we remember Yah's set apart time, it literally tells his story of redemption. Messiah being our Pesach lamb, being the Passover, letting the death angel pass over us. Of him not just being our Pesach lamb, not just dying, but him being raised after 3 days in the ground, the firstborn among many brethren. And of then his promise that he would not leave us comfortless, but he would send one to us to teach us, to comfort us, to show us. And that happened on Shavuot. As we know, some may call it Pentecost. But the Holy Spirit fell. But not only was the Holy Spirit given on Shavuot, the tradition is that long ago, the commandments were given on Shavuot. The Word. And then we will hear that trumpet sound, and he will return. When we shall see his judgment. And then when he will tabernacle. And at the end of that reign, we will go into eternity. So his set-apart times aren't just a celebration of the past, not just looking forward. If we kept his days, perhaps others' days might not draw upon us. Perhaps the tradition would not have made his word of none effect. Colossians 2. Here Paul is writing a small church. Paul or any of the apostles going to Colossae. We read in Acts 19 where they were in that area and where Paul stayed for a couple of years, and it said that the gospel went out through all of Asia Minor. But here we have Paul writing to the Colossians. And a chapter that many would say does away with Torah. Does things. That he was instructing them just to follow Messiah. Important. For I wish you to know what a great struggle I have for you and those in Laodicea, and for as many as have not seen my face in the flesh, in order that their hearts might be encouraged, being knit to our confirmation of understanding, to a true knowledge of the secret of Elohim and of the Father and of the Messiah, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. So first of all, where were hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge? Elohim and Messiah. Now, in our traditional church gospel, how much is hidden in the Father? Virtually nothing except for Messiah. In our traditional church gospel, it's all about Jesus. Jesus came basically from everything the Father said in the Old Testament. The Father had to proclaim this sentence of death, but he loved us so much that he sent Jesus, to set us free from all that. Well, Paul must have missed that, because he said, to a true knowledge of the secret of Elohim and of in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. And this I say so that no one deceives you with enticing words. and belief in Messiah. Not just believe in Messiah. What would order make you think of? Yeah, the law, rules, regulations, the way to do things. Not just every man doing what was on his own. Not just every man being led by the Spirit. They had order and belief. Therefore, as you accepted Messiah Yeshua, the Master, walk in him. How are we to walk in him? Same way you accepted him. How did we accept Messiah? Nope. That's what the church says. But if you go back to Acts, there was a big controversy. How do you accept Messiah? Some said, got to be circumcised. Got to follow the law of Moses. Go through the Pharisaical system. You got to do that before you can be saved. Some said, no, that's not necessary for salvation. So they had a big disagreement about it. They went to the church, and James and the elders settled it and said what? Let's not put everything on them at once. They need to abstain from fornication, abstain from things strangled, things offered to idols. Is not Moses taught in every synagogue, on every Sabbath, everywhere? Well, why would he bring that up in the same message of saying what they had to do? They're going to hear all the rest. Now, are they not going to hear the same things he told them to abstain from? But he said, at least let them start doing these things, showing that there's a commitment there. And what was the big fuss about anyway? Was it really about salvation? Do you remember what the big stink was? Whether or not you could associate with him. If you remember, Peter was eating with the sinners, with the Gentiles. Then some of those who said you've got to be circumcised came around, and Peter did what? Got up and only went and ate with the Jews, and the next day he went and eat with the Gentiles. It was never really about salvation, because yes, salvation only comes through Messiah, through my belief, through my confession. But what are works? A sign of my confession. James said faith without works is dead. Jesus says, if you love me, obey my commandments. Commandments to earn his love, but because I love him. The whole argument was, what did I do to associate with these people in my everyday life? Because the Pharisees had then come so far away in their vain traditions, Jesus said that they made the word of God of none effect, that they wouldn't even eat with an unbeliever. They thought that's what it meant to be set apart. So much so that Jesus, even though he was with the lost house of Israel, was still with those who the Pharisees called glutton and wine bibbers and sinners. They wouldn't even associate with them, even though they were Israelites, because they weren't religious enough. So when we read this passage, let's remember the issue was never what did they need to do to be a follower of Messiah. The issue was always, what did you need to do for me to associate with you? For me to have fellowship with you? That was the only controversy in the early church. And James said, as long as they're doing these first few things, we'll associate with them. We'll take it as a token of good faith. The rest they will learn and go and do, which are all to perish with use according to the commandments and teaching of men. So now, do not touch, do not taste, do not handle. Is he talking about Torah then? Because I shouldn't touch a carcass, I shouldn't taste non-food, I don't handle things with leprosy? No, he said don't follow those things that are the commandments and teaching of men. Remember, the Pharisees had said, well, if you can't touch this, then to make sure you don't touch this, you can't touch this, you can't touch this, you can't touch that. They were all about hammer time. Can't touch this. That you had to do it, not just wash your hands, not for 20 seconds, but you had to use like an eggshell and a half of water. Or else it wasn't clean. Couldn't use 2 eggshells, couldn't use 1 eggshell. You had to use a specific amount of water, and you had to pour it a specific way, or else you weren't clean. Yeah. It's Frank Sinatra. You're going to do it my way. And he's saying you don't need to follow all of those things. For men, follow Messiah. And what did Messiah follow? Torah. I came to do the things of my Father. If you love me, keep my commandments. These indeed have an appearance of wisdom in self-imposed worship. Was Torah self-imposed? No. Humiliation and harsh treatment of the body. Was Torah humiliation and harsh treatment of the body? No. Yah said, these things are near unto you already. Jesus said, take my yoke, it is light. David said, your law is like honey in the honeycomb. Of no value at all, only for satisfaction of the flesh. Was Torah of no value at all, only for the satisfaction of the flesh? Torah was of great value, because in it you chose life. If then you were raised with Messiah, seek the matters which are above, where Messiah is seated at the right hand of Elohim. So what should I pray? Thy kingdom come, earth as it is in heaven. Is there sin in heaven? Is there Torah in heaven? Because is he not the Word that was from the beginning? Is he not there now? So then he could not have been speaking in chapter 2 of Torah. They could not have been saying it's done away with. And he didn't. He just said, don't follow men. Don't follow men's teachings. Don't get caught up in the minutia. Obey. As you learn more, obey more. Same thing James told early Christians. Look, Moses has taught year after year after year after year. You're not going to learn it all in a day. You're not going to learn it all the first time through. Every time I go through it, I go, man, who put that in there? I didn't see that in there last time. What do we do about this? What do we do about that? It's a lifetime of learning. Because I've had a long part of my life where I didn't learn it, where I hadn't studied it, where I thought it was gone. And I've got a world out there that's active against all of it, that seeks to beat it out of you. Yeah, the church and the world, some of them harder than the world. So mind the matters that are above, not those on the earth. For you have died, and your life has been hidden with Messiah in Elohim. When Messiah, who is our life, is manifested, then you also shall be manifested with him in esteem. Therefore put to death your members which are on the earth, whoring, uncleanliness, passion, evil desire, greed of gain, which is idolatry. That's Torah. It's Torah. So he's plainly saying here, the things which we're to put to death, the things which we aren't to take note of from chapter 2, anything that exalts itself against the knowledge of Yah. Because of these, the wrath of Elohim is coming upon the sons of disobedience. Walked when you lived in them, but now put off all of these. Displeasure, wrath, evil, blasphemy, filthy talk from your mouth. Do not lie to each other. Since you have put off the old man with his practices, and have put on the new man, who is renewed in knowledge according to the likeness of him who created him. Pretty simple. Before they were Christians, when they were the old man, did they walk in Torah? Well, these were Gentiles. They never heard of Torah. And even the Jews weren't walking in Torah, not many of them, or Jesus wouldn't have had to come to them and go, by your vain traditions, you made the word of God of none effect. But now we are to die to self, take up our cross, put off these things, because the wrath of Elohim is coming upon the sons of disobedience. How could there be disobedience if there's no law? Put on the new man who is renewed in knowledge according to the likeness of him, of Messiah, and of his Father, just as he taught us to pray, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the glory, the power forever. Amen. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod,